we're not talking about the same thing. We're not singing the same song.
We never do sing the same song.
That's true.
We never do.
Don't. Yeah. Yeah. What is up with that anyway, really?
Well, I don't know what song you're going to sing. You have to give me an advance warning.
Ah, yes, of course. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Yeah. But my musical knowledge is not confined to Wine and a Bumsy, whatever the hell that is. Our non-Caribbean audience probably won't get it.
Yeah, no, they won't get it. The two of them.
True.
The two of them. One is from some guy from India trying to scam me, and another one is probably some guy in the States. But hey, we love you anyway, whoever you are.
Yeah. I mean, really, our audience of like what? About how many do we have now on the fingers of a badly mutilated hand? Is that how?
Well,
is that how?
I'll tell you something. Hold on. I'll tell you something.
Yeah.
Let's see. Okay. On our YouTube channel, we have 29 subscribers. Yay!
Yay! Woohoo!
29
Fantastic.
subscribers.
Okay, that's great. That's encouraging, I guess.
Right. On our podcast itself.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Yeah.
On the podcast itself.
Yes.
Why is this not clicking? Click. Yeah.
Click. Show us that you've got the power. Show us that you've got the power. Walk towards the light.
We have 15 people who have listened to each one of our podcasts in total.
15 people listening to our podcast.
Yeah.
All right.
And anyway, let's start.
Yes, let's.
Well, we started already, so I think we could just. Yeah, I think we could just keep going. I mean.
All right. Well, let's keep winging it. Let's keep winging it. Yeah. Wing it.
Welcome to. But that's not important right now.
What's the show about again?
I'm Jared Butts.
No, you're not. Don't do that. Don't try to mess with people's heads like that. Why would you want to do that to yourself? And I am the King of Hearts. I am the gangster of love. Some people even call me Maurice, but I speak as the pompatus of love. Okay, now enough of the bullshitting. He's Ian Reed, right? And I'm Jared Butts. Why do we do this show? Because it's a show, it's all about advertising in this part of the world and the attendant pitfalls and glories that go with said profession.
Well, so it's more about working in an ad agency more than anything else. Yeah, Jared and I used to work in a big international ad agency.
Yeah, that's true.
And it was crazy. We can't describe it any other way but madness. So we want to share this madness with the world.
Right.
As I've said before, the aim of this is to collect some stories so we can ultimately write it down and put it into a book. Whether that happens or not, we'll see. But I mean, I have some thoughts and ideas.
Yes.
But we generally talk about, right now, we're thinking, I wouldn't call it the death of the ad industry. It's not the death, it's a change. And it's the change from the traditional ad agency paradigm to something else. And what this something else is right now is still in flux, at least here locally.
Yes. And I think the reason why it hasn't made the complete transition to something revolutionary, to something new, could it be that we, as a people, as a collective, I don't think we're that receptive to change. That's something that we've never been really able to if we are to change, if society is to change, they're going to take us into it kicking and screaming kind of thing. And that has always been the case, not just in advertising, but in any field that one cares to name. I mean, you could, for example, if you wanted to get a passport in this country, you have to walk with documents and this and that, and go through all the hoops.
To get a credit card, you need.
Lord,
to get a credit card, you need a current utility bill. So you need to be living somewhere. In other words, you have to be living somewhere with your name on a utility bill for you to be paying a utility. So that's the first thing. Second thing is you need a job letter. So a loan and a credit card require those two documents. Right. If you are renting, right, it's not as difficult. But if you are in a situation where, well, one, you're living at home, you don't have a utility bill.
Yeah.
Or two, if you have no employment. If you have no employment, you can't get a credit card and you can't get a loan. So how are you going to start a business? How are you going to start a business if you can't get a loan?
Well, you could start a business the old-fashioned way in Trinidad and Tobago.
You sell drugs. Sell drugs. I said we sell drugs. I've always said that. Let's go and sell.
Dude, you're on your own with that one. As tempting as it sounds.
I am the danger.
As tempting as it sounds, I don't want to have to look over my shoulder all the time. And
you won't be looking over your shoulder all the time.
Oh yeah, you want to bet?
No, you just won't know when you die, which is the great thing about it. You just one day, as what's his name in Gladiator says, if you wake up in a field with the sun on your face and the wind blowing through your hair, don't be alarmed. You're in Elysium and you're already dead. You'll never know when you die.
You never know. Oh,
because
that's
that was
terrific.
what he said in Goodfellas. He said in Goodfellas he knew there were narcs because narcs made a lot of noise. He said they were the police. He said if it were Goodfellas, if it were the gangsters, he would have not known. He would have just been dead. They would have just, which is true. It's just true. Anyway, we digress. Sorry.
We tend to do that from time to time.
I want to shout out to our friend Shiva Ori. I don't know if you remember Shiva.
I remember
Shiva working in the agency.
Nice guy. Great
Shiva
guy.
works at one of the newspapers, and he had a little conversation with me yesterday. And he said he's finally caught up with all of the shows, and he's really, really stoked and happy because he says we talk a lot of good stuff. And he had a suggestion. Not a suggestion. He had a comment. So I'll read the comment.
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to hear
it. You sure? You sure you want to hear the comment?
Oh boy. Oh boy. There it goes. All right.
Right. So he says, oh shit, I didn't even check the link. He suggested a podcast for us to look at. And I told him that I'll take a look at it. I haven't got a chance to. Sorry, Shiva. So he says, hey, so I finally got a chance to make some inroads in last month's podcast. Couple things. At the start, you sing Insane in the Brain. That's Cypress Hill, you moron. No, he didn't say a moron, but I added that. Not House of Pain, you idiot. No, not idiot. Okay, he didn't say that. House of Pain's frontman was Everlast, who went on to do some folksy rock as a solo artist. So I think we did mention that. I think we did.
Anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Fred Durst and Limp Bizkit have nothing to do with either, really. Okay, Shiva. Now, Shiva and I have the same taste in music, and I think Shiva has the same taste in music as you, right?
Yeah.
And then he suggested the podcast as it's called The Documentary by BBC News, The Advertising Trap, and the Documentary podcast, right? So I have to take a listen to that. I'll send you a link. You could take a listen to that.
You should. I think it's on the BBC World Service right now, actually. Eric Butler's hosting it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I've heard about it.
Yeah. Just an aside, BBC News is just driving me nuts. There's something is wrong with the either something is wrong with the transmitter, something is wrong with my radio. Because I get this kind of random interference going ch-ch-ch-ch. It sounds like aliens.
So do I.
I think there's something wrong with their transmitter.
Highly infuriating.
Yeah. It's a bit irritating. But hey, it's free radio. It's world radio. You know, people in war-torn parts of the world have to listen to it inside caves. You know, what are we? Who are we? You know,
exactly.
But anybody from the BBC who happens to listen to this, please fix your transmitter.
Please fix the damn thing. We love listening to your programs. We do.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we were planning on having two of our guests who have been here before, Randall and Avi, because we wanted to do a show, because Randall had a great idea, because he wanted to discuss, we don't call it gatekeeping. We don't want to use that word, but essentially that's what it is. The spirit of it is, I need somebody to protect me from these voracious clients. You know, like if the clients are monsters and trying to eat you, and you know, I need somebody to shield me. But Randall is graduating today, so congratulations to Randall. He graduated today.
Randall. Doing well.
He said he's flying right now. So happy landings, Randall.
Yes.
I'm gonna roll a critical because he plays D&D, and I hope the roll is successful. Yes, the roll is successful. You landed without incident.
Terrific.
Except for the strip search. The cavity search.
There is always some sort of, you know, weird event to take place. There's always a slip twixt cup and lip, but I get you.
Yeah. And we were inviting Ave back because Ave used to work on the client services part of things.
Ave.
So we thought that would be nice that Randall and Ave, two young people, a lot younger than we are,
a lot younger than we are,
talk a little bit about the experiences. I mean, I wanted to invite Kendall as well, but Kendall was also busy. So maybe I might bring Kendall and Ave and Randall next week, and we'll see how that goes. Because Kendall said he will be free next week, and Ave said she'll be free next week. It should be interesting. So look out for that one. We're going to be talking about working within an ad agency situation and why client services are important. And we really come down on client services. We make a bit of noise about them. And we sometimes we don't treat them very well, and we laugh at them, and we make up jokes about them. But they are the ones they're in the middle. Then they rock with you. You rock in the hard place. Yeah. You know? So yeah. How was your week, Jared?
How was my week? It wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I was able to accomplish a couple of things, and you know, I'm just sort of waiting for for a couple of things to unfold and see how that turns out. Forgive me for sounding cryptic, but that's how it is now. Because if I were to say what it is that I want to do, that would be jinxing the whole thing. And,
we know that.
So rather than do that, I'm just gonna keep my powder dry for now, and you know, just do what I got to do.
What's the old saying? Don't say anything, just do it. You know, afterwards.
Don't say anything. Exactly.
Yeah, you know. Yeah, cool.
There's something. There's also an old saying that never cuss the alligator long mouth till you cross the river. So yeah, I'm going to.
I never heard that.
You never heard that saying?
Is that something from Carnage? Because I never heard that.
Must be, because that's what my grandfather, must have been a Guyanese thing, because my grandfather was originally from Guyana.
Okay.
To never cuss the alligator long mouth till you cross the river. It's all right. I hear that.
That sounds, now that I think about it, that sounds reasonable. It's, So we have today, we have a guest who has never listened to the show, who doesn't have a clue what he's getting himself into.
The show?
No, he's not heard the show. He's a busy guy, but we're really glad to have him.
That explains it.
He's okay. So what happened was a couple of years ago.
Yes.
Okay, even further back, almost 20 years ago, I had a friend.
Yeah,
I had a friend who went Fatima with us. I don't know if you remember him. He was 3 years ahead of me, so he must have been in class with you. You were 3 years ahead of me. No, 4. You're 4. Anyway,
Probably 4 years ahead. I was 4 years ahead.
His name was Roy Francis, and
That makes sense.
Roy Francis was this gearhead. He loved cars. He always loved cars. And Roy and I were neighbors, and Roy and I were good friends. Outside of school, in school, and all this kind of thing. I won't go into those details. But Roy came to me one day and said, this is early. I mean, this is like 97, 96 back in those days. And this is when the internet was now starting.
Yeah.
You know, I think the dot-com bubble had just happened.
Yep.
But Roy had come to me and he said, or Roy told me, he said, I'm starting a website for cars with a friend. And I'm like, wow, that's so cool. And they started this website. I forget the name of it, but it eventually evolved into a site that's now called TriniTuner.com. Now, the guy who bring it on, his name is Dwayne Budising. Dwayne was, strangely enough, Roy's contemporary. Now, I'm not too sure about the relationship. I could ask Dwayne, but I don't really want to get into that on the show. But that's how I kind of met Dwayne in the beginning. I kind of knew that he was into this car website, TriniTuner. They call it Tuner. It's a huge social media network, which before Facebook, before Twitter, before MySpace, TriniTuner was the place to go to. And it started out as a place to buy and sell car parts and cars and so on, because Trinis are gearheads. They're car crazy. And he became extremely successful running this website. And it's basically run on ads, right? He doesn't charge a subscription fee. Excuse me. He runs ads on it, and he has clients, and he's been around for the longest. So he's been around for 20 years. And well, my friend Roll, he died. He was shot and killed because he and Dwayne split, and he started another company doing car search, and he went looking for a car, and they shot him. The bandits shot him, and they never found it back. Yeah, so it's terrible. That was about 7 years ago now. But Dwayne is still around, and Dwayne happened to show up at the agency one year, and I say, "Hey, Dwayne, what's going on?" He's like, "Ian, you working here?" And we ended up talking, and eventually we have this kind of network connection, and we're friends because he and I have done work together and done stuff together. I'm just gonna read what he sent me.
Sure.
Dwayne Budising is the managing director at TriniTuner.com, TNT's largest automotive website for the past 22 years. He is also a husband and father of 3. He has been somewhat of a digital evangelist for the past 2.5 decades, having worked in print, starting off as a graphic designer at TrinPad, designing copybook and notebook covers. Okay, all right, that's a lot of stuff.
That's a lot of
his
stuff.
Love for all things automotive and his passion for digital resulted in TriniTuner.com and the TriniTuner mobile app. So go and check it out. Go and check out TriniTuner.com, join it, become part of it, whatever. And he's a sci-fi fan and will answer yes if you ask which is better, Star Trek or Star Wars. As of last month, he's owned the same car for the past 20 years. And then he says, "Is this TMI?" I said, "No, it's not TMI. I mean, it's a little bit longer than what I usually get from people for their bios. In fact, we have been very thing about bios. But I want to welcome onto the show Dwayne. Hello, Dwayne. You're muted.
Hi, Dwayne.
I think we surprised him. Hi.
Hello, Dwayne. How you doing?
How are you guys?
We're pretty good so far.
Okay.
Dwayne, you never met Jared when you were at the agency. When you came
yes,
to the
I
agency.
did.
You did?
Yes.
Jared, do you remember that?
Wow, it's been so long.
Yeah.
I think I did, yes.
And I think the last convo we had was I just swung by to collect something from the front desk, and we bounced up in the car park. That was a shorter convo, but
yes.
That was me and you. Or that was
no.
That was me and Jared.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and you and I was
we did the same thing at one point.
Yeah, but before that was with Kimberly, yeah.
Yeah, when Kimberly was digital. Yeah,
yes,
we had Kimberly
digital,
on to the show too. We had Kimberly on the show 2 weeks ago to talk about digital. So, and that's from the agency side of things where she is now. And we were talking specifically about, what were we talking about? I can't remember, but it was one of the earlier episodes. We kind of brought Kimberly on to talk about.
We were talking about the effects of the use of digital advertising and how it the digital advertising with social media, and how we were able to get, just purely by serendipity, we were able to generate a huge following because of
right social media stuff.
Particular client, remember?
That's
what we were talking about.
That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what we were doing.
So I brought on Dwayne because Dwayne and I have huge, hour-long conversations about digital advertising.
Yes, I apologize for that.
No, that's fine. And our frustration with clients sometimes, because Dwayne has been in the business longer than I have. And Dwayne, I just want to make sure we understand. TriniTuner, right? It started in 2000, because you say 22 years, right?
Yep.
When did you start offering ads on TriniTuner?
Almost immediately. So this is at the point in time in 2000, I was, well, let me just go back to late 90s, maybe 98, somewhere around there, right? I was at Caribbean Interactive Multimedia, and we were doing interactive CD-ROMs. Obviously, the bandwidth of the internet couldn't handle multimedia. So the way to get this around was on a CD-ROM. And CIM, Caribbean Interactive Multimedia, that's Brian and Ingrid Jara, Edward Monserin, Calvin George, a couple other people on the team. We were creating these interactive multimedia CDs. We did some for Diwali Nagar. We were working on a big project called Africa, the Mother of Civilization, which was a feature of Dr. Ben Yukanan, who is an Egyptologist and had to do interactive 3D animations for that. And other corporate things we did for NGC and that kind of thing too. So when, as part of that, we were also doing websites for corporate websites. Also NGC, Republic Bank, we did Republic Bank's first website, TSTT's first website, a couple others. And at the time, I was working on Republic Bank's site. I think my point person then was Elena Villafana. And I had just started working on TriniTuner. It was really just a concept. I put some pages together, had some photos of local cars, and just started, doing these little features. And I showed it to her. At that point, we were getting a couple hundred views a day because, it would get passed around on ICQ and MSN Messenger. Right. The link would get passed around. Plus, at some car events too, people would kind of share it and say, hey, check my car here and that kind of thing. So with the little bit of traffic that we were getting, I remember telling the team at Republic, hey, look at this. We seem to have, a younger audience. And we were working on a couple of things then, pages for Career Builder, car loans, loans in general. And they said, yes, do up some graphics and we'll put it on the page. And I did. And we were, back then there were click counters, right? You didn't really have analytics to go through. So we would just add click counters, little JavaScript and it was real rudimentary back then, just basically checking clicks. And those were the first set of quote unquote banner ads. I mean, this was before Google started doing banner ads, and banner ads were a thing. I kind of followed a shape from web crawler. I don't know if you remember that. Web crawler was one of the first search engines way back when. The top of their site had, of their search engine had this horizontal strip. And I used that, and it was somewhere around like what would be a 640 by maybe 40 size back then. And yeah, it just kind of evolved into banner ads and digital advertising. And, you know, we'd drop a video because sometimes companies all they would have as TVCs. So over the years, one of the challenges we've had is taking existing media. I mean, up till today, you know, taking existing media and resizing it or repurposing it for web. I mean, up till today, I got a press ad. Then I asked for the layered file. They sent that, and from that, you know, we could kind of build the web versions of it, because they didn't have web ads or banner ads, display ads in the booking. Well, I mean, in their campaign. So that is something that 2 decades later we still have to do. It's just the way it works, and I would much rather do that for the client, because what we found happens is they would say, "Oh no, well, we have to go and do artwork," and the cost to do that artwork for them, and digital display advertising is so cheap. It's often more than the cost to run the ads. So most times they may say, "Nah, well, let's not bother. We'll probably look at that for another campaign." So it's either we do it or we lose the booking. So you know, it's not unusual for us to be resizing artwork for advertisers. It's not even a thought now. It's just, you know, something that you find yourself doing.
All right, I want to pause it there because we got Quincy Ross jumping in. Quincy.
Oh, Quincy.
I don't know if you know Quincy.
I know of Quincy. Yes. Well, I mean, with all of us in those in the social media groups.
So I asked Quincy if you'd be interested in jumping on. He said if he had time, he would. So I guess he's here. So I don't want to break the flow, because this is a good flow, because there's another follow-up question I want to ask. But let me just add Quincy, and we just continue the flow. All right.
Okay.
But what I wanted to say is that the banner, what we call banner advertising, what we call display advertising now. It used to be called banner advertising then. What we call display advertising now has evolved from, well, Wild West. You could do whatever size you want and put it wherever you want, and pop-ups and whatever. It was just crazy. To this standardized format, which basically Google is ruling the roost. Google is telling people, this is how you need to do it, and you can't deviate from that. So I don't want to go into nitty-gritty. I just want to say hello to Quincy. Hi, Quincy.
Hi, Quincy.
Good things.
How you doing?
Yeah. Quincy, I don't know if you know Dwayne.
I know of Dwayne. Actually, I'm supposed to be meeting Dwayne soon.
Same thing I just said about you, Quincy. I know of Quincy.
Good. That's good. That's good. So what we kind of talking about is we're trying to establish a kind of timeline of TriniTuner, and Dwayne kind of went through before he came. He was kind of going through the history of TriniTuner and how we started and all that, and it's very interesting. But what I want to get into, and Paul Jared is going to be out to sea with this, because this is real tech. We're going to get into real technical talk.
I'm going to try to navigate through the waters as best as I can.
And we apologize to our listeners who have no idea what we're going to be talking about. But sometimes this can get very technical. Okay. One of the things that Dwayne and I have been saying, and Prince, you could probably back this up, is that somewhere, Dwayne, I don't know if it's 2005 or 2010. I don't know if it's around those, between that period, 2005, 2010, when Google really launched display and search ads. When was it that they launched search ads? Was it in 2005?
Yeah, it would probably be around 2005 or maybe even before that, in terms of them looking at advertising on websites. Right. I think it was always part of the structure that they had. Building out a search engine is one thing, but if you can't monetize that search engine, and I think a lot of us realized early on, we had big arguments about this when TriniTuner just started. You can't, and it's still my feeling, you can't charge users. This paywall thing does not work. You can't charge users for using our platform. Instead, you have to find other forms of revenue. And I think Google realized that early on too, that while you could probably charge per search, that's not a good model. So offer the search feature for free and allow people to advertise in that search. That would have evolved into the various forms of digital advertising that we have today, and the various ways of tracking and audience affinity and all those kind of things that we have today. But in its rudimentary form, it was a way to offer the usability of whatever platform you had for free. And you then monetize it by offering advertising. I think Judd would understand that perfectly, because that's exactly how radio basically works.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right? It's free to air and you run ads.
The problem though is, which is what we discussed, which is what I get into the meat of it, is that Google basically took, and Quincy and I talked about this a couple of episodes ago, Google and then now Facebook basically took the power away from an ad agency as a middleman. So the ad agency would book the radio spot and put the ad on the radio and charge the client a commission fee for the putting the ad on the radio. That was the process, right?
Yeah.
Google took that away. Google and Facebook took that away. So you weren't booking an ad per se for a client. You weren't booking an ad on Google for a client. The client was just basically saying, well, hey, it's cheap enough for me to do this by myself. I don't need a middleman.
Well, so just to jump in the middle there, I won't necessarily say that Google, they had this plan, this fiendish plan to, trump the agency. Yeah. Instead, it was, for them, it was a happy byproduct of the technology. The fact that you can get the metrics, you can get the targeting, you can set up the booking, scheduling, all of those things using the technology, even the artwork, you can put it in and it kind of builds the whole campaign there for you, what we kind of refer to as programmatic. That is what they were able to do is a byproduct of those technologies, and what those technologies offer. So it's not really necessarily a fiendish plan they had. It was just a way. It was what the technology allowed them to do. I mean, I had just spoken about the fact that we were doing artwork internally because a lot of advertisers just didn't have web ads created already.
Mhm.
So, to a certain degree, we're kind of doing full service type of stuff. We do videos, we do static artwork, we do animations, we do text, we do copy, we do all of these things put together. And so it's just because the technology allows us to be able to do that. Before, you would have needed people in an agency with the contacts and the experience and the skills that they have to be able to do that. I was literally just looking at a video on, MKBHD has this sub-channel called The Studio. I don't know if you're familiar.
No, MKBHD is what?
MKBHD is Marcus Brownlee. He is
okay.
reviewer on YouTube. Huge.
Yeah, I know Marcus.
Right. So
yeah.
Mark, yeah. And he has a sub channel where all the guys in their studio. The name of the channel is The Studio, and they kind of show you how they do things in the background. And they were just reviewing DALL-E, DALL-E, which is AI that you can just type out like I want draw me a picture of a deer with feathers by the beach. And DALL-E takes this and creates an amazing image in about 10 seconds of exactly what you need, right? And it's not copyrighted or anything like that. So they had put their very skilled artist versus DALL-E, and a lot of times DALL-E came out on top. So now that you have that kind of thing, you're going to have graphic artists complaining, painters.
Wow.
It's a technology. And Jared, even with you too, about 2 years ago, there was a video kind of passing around of it was basically Photoshop for audio, where you could take someone's voice, it listens to a whole bunch of clips of that person, and then whatever you type out, it repeats it in their voice and their cadence and everything.
I know about that.
And then, we also have just the standard text-to-speech now that's getting considerably better, not sounding as robotic as it used to, and I'm sure it'll just get better and better. So eventually, you just have these computers, and instead of listening to Jared give out some nice quotes in the morning on 103.5, you just have some computer doing it. So it is a concern across the board.
But that's inevitable. I mean, you can't get away from the fact that technology will find a way to not just duplicate, things that in terms of the creative aspect of it, whether you're talking about artwork, whether you're talking about voiceover work, that is inevitable. That's not going to change anytime soon. And you're right, technology is going to get better. But you still have to pay attention to the human factor, because the reality of the situation is it's still a creative process, and it still involves a lot of creativity, and that's not going away anytime soon. I think technology can only go so far, but
just in the automotive industry, everything is moving towards electric, and the humans like the gasoline, they like the smell, the sound, the all of those factors that bring out emotion and human.
Can't tune no electric car doing. You can't tune it.
Well, I mean,
you can't listen to the car and say, "Well, this car needs a tune."
Right.
Can't do that.
So that aspect of it, they are kicking back against. You have some podcasters, some YouTubers, some like Jeremy Clarkson at Top Gear, etc., and they are they're all complaining about these electric vehicles that have no soul. And it kind of brings you back to technology, removing that human factor that we will always need.
Well, look, right? I get caught up in listening to everybody because some really nice things coming out, right? So I was kind of ball watching there. But I wanted to interject since we started talking about, actually since Ian mentioned Google taking away like media placement and thing online from agencies, right? I don't see it that way. I don't see it as Google taking away, but they actually add into the landscape, right? The issue has always been that agencies didn't adjust to the changes that were being made, and rather try to fight back against it rather than embrace it and see what best we could do with it. You know, how we could look at this within the context of what we do, what we provide, and let me see what we could make, you know, if it just how we operate and if we could change that and make it different, right? And that's the complaint across the board, at least I have, in terms of a rapidly changing landscape and a rapidly changing consumer and a very slow to change industry.
And economy.
And economy, right? So even in the context of all these advancements in technology, in all aspects, all that happening is things adding to the landscape that you have to adapt. I could go straight to vehicles or cars. I mean, yeah, we go like, you know, getting your hands dirty and tuning up an engine and here. And I personally like to hear engine, honestly, right?
Yeah.
I like the tone of an engine. I could drive to that rather than music sometimes, because sometimes it's nice. But the electric vehicles bring into the table some huge benefits for mankind in general.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
You can see digital cameras. I mean, photographers in the early days kicked back against it.
I was going to use that as the example.
That's not photography and all that kind of thing. We see it across the board for many different things.
Of course, that's one of the things that's one of the things that jump into my mind. But I just use the cars to just be outside of the zone to show how universal it is, you know.
In the 90s,
and what I was going to say is what it means is that you might consider now having two vehicles. You might have your day-to-day driver that might be electric, that offer you benefits, and you have your gas vehicle, your fuel vehicle, you know, for fun and entertainment, and that is your hobby, you know. You might actually find more people getting involved in having a car in the workshop, you know, well, if we could afford that in Trinidad.
Like the motorcycle in iRobot.
Right,
you know,
right.
Something that,
you know?
In the 90s, I was working at, my first job was at TriniTuner. We were designing copybook covers, and they had an art room with a huge camera, was the size of a room, to shoot positives onto plates to print. And we would use Rubylit and Cowgum and all of those things to paste up stuff. I went through that whole thing. And when, you know, we got computers and all this PageMaker and CorelDRAW and that kind of thing, there were people in the art room that hated us for that. For wanting to jump over into, but I saw how much easier it made things. You could print out stuff with registration marks right there.
But it's interesting. It's interesting that when I started at the agency, and separate and apart from the fact that they were using extremely old equipment when I reached, and I'm like, well, this is not industry standard. But anyway, let's not digress. I sat down and I told myself, I would not want to go and learn how to do Rubylit and negatives. I said, I don't want to learn that, because that's old school thing. I'm going to go on this box, as Ralph Bakshi had said in one of his interviews, to say the entire animation department is now in this box. You have this box, right? I have this box. I'm going to do stuff with it. And I told myself that. And, you know, they reached a point where I should have said it again, when instead of doing Flash, I sort of went and done JavaScript and HTML and CSS and stuff. I went and run after Flash, thinking Flash is the future, and that was the dead end.
We all did.
But I mean, that's separate and apart from that. What I'm saying is that I was telling an artist, we were lining one night. I was telling an old school artist guy, I said, well, this thing with the internet, this Flash thing that we're doing, they're going to revolutionize things, and you have to get on board. And he was like, "Guys, shit, you know what you're talking about." and now that I am now at his age when we had that conversation. I'm now reaching that age that he was at, and I'm thinking to myself, all of this digital advertising thing on Facebook and thing, this is all shit. This is all shit. I can't make money from that. So there comes a time in your life where you have to be like Grandpa Simpson and just go, I used to be with it, and then they changed what it was, and now I am no longer with it, because it sounds strange and weird to me.
I think that is not the approach, and let me tell you why.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had a very similar experience with music, right? My father was a musician. Right? Mm-hmm. And he couldn't stand like anything electronic, synthesizers, all this kind of thing, and drum machines and all that, sequencers when I was coming in back in the day. He found that was complete garbage and that spoiling the music and this and that. And I wanted at the time, I was like, 6 or 7 or something. I wanted a Casio SK10. That had like 5 seconds of sampling, and I was blown by it,
Even if you weren't in music, you know what that was.
Yeah, I wanted to know.
That's true.
Bad. And boom, my father buy a Bentley piano. I don't want this. I don't want this. This crazy. And he was saying, you need to learn the basics and the foundation of music before you go into that. Yeah, even though he didn't like it, he said you need to learn that and whatever. And I couldn't understand it. I really rebel. I didn't go piano lessons and all that because it was the rebellious thing, right? But after getting into it and working on a couple jingles and writing some music and all that, my own desire to get better at it actually led me to understand what he was saying, because when you look at how people use the technology, it's not about the technology being bad. It's about how people use the technology, and it's a somewhat lazy approach because you could get things done so easily. So, you could, like in music, you could play some notes and then click a button and get the chords. The whatever software you're using could create the chords for you.
But quantization, I mean, hell, you don't have to play it in time.
Yeah, you could just play something and then it could quantize it for you. But even like if you understand the music and why the chords doing what they're doing and why it's making that sound, you'll be able to produce better music, rather than just do this and say, this need to be in some code, so I click this and that happens. You end up getting some lazy products, and then I start understanding what my pops are saying. But his approach, as in, I don't get it. You could have still buy the Casio SK10 for my daddy if you could hear. and allow me to do the formal stuff on the side, or at the same time, I should say parallel. Yeah. And then you get somebody that understands the basics and know the new technology, and that is a real
the foundation in any art form or anything at all, could be business, could be accounting, could be whatever, is really, really important. And I was glad to come through the production side, starting off from print and then moving to digital.
That is what I used to tell my Costa students.
Yeah,
I used to tell them that you had to understand. I call it understand how you're finishing. You have to know how this thing is going to be produced so that you could know how to build for it. It's logical, and they looked at me like I was talking Greek.
But I mean, conversely, for me, I heard what Quincy said about his dad. My dad was always into whatever the latest thing was. We had a CD player at home, maybe in the 80s, right? 88 for sure. And we had a computer at home. It was a Amstrad PC that had 2 floppy drives, no hard drive. We had a Commodore 64, a VIC-20. The programs ran on a TDK cassette.
Cassette drive.
Went through all of that. I too went through the keyboard phase. I wanted a Yamaha DX7, but I think I got a much cheaper, considerably cheaper one, and played around with that. So luckily for me, he was always one to kind of push technology, and he likes that kind of thing. So for me, it was a little bit easier kind of getting into it. I mean, even I did graphic design. I did art and for CXC, I did graphic design at A-levels. Those are things that you hear a lot of parents. I mean, at that point in time, I'm sure a lot of people said, "Are you crazy? That's what you haven't doing." But that's what I wanted to do. And my parents were always very supportive of that. And I think that kind of background, again, foundation, kind of led to me getting into what I do and really enjoying it so much. When you have that support, it really helps. But coming back to what we were talking about with the movement into digital and the way people perceive it, I think we're at a point where, I mean, everyone understands it's inevitable. This is the way we're going. But I'd mentioned economy before, and definitely through COVID. I mean, we saw what happened with Zoom. We're on Zoom right now. Things happen and evolve in weird ways that we can't even explain. Like up till now, I can't really understand why Zoom became the de facto standard.
Agreed. I never heard of them.
It became a verb in the past 2 years when you had monsters, behemoths like Skype, right?
Yeah.
And those just kind of got left to the wayside. I'm not so sure what happened when. But if I had a time machine, I'd go and buy some Zoom stock.
But
we can't always tell where the technology or how people will adapt to it and how they will use it. But I think that now, especially with the economy and the ability to boost a post for $5, has really changed the landscape that we were all accustomed to. It's difficult to really put on a scale $8,000 or $10,000 full page press ad versus boost a post for $5.
Which is bringing me back to what the agencies and to reinforce Quincy's point. So when this Facebook thing started, and the head of media at the time had been sent on a course on how to do Facebook advertising, and she came back. And she and I started going through it because I was doing Facebook social media stuff. And she and I were trying to figure out, the first thing she asked was, how are we going to make money from this? So I said, all right, well, what we'll do is we will set up the campaigns and let the client pay for it. And it would be an ongoing thing. Now, okay, so we have to look at understanding. The understanding of the client is, I run an ad in the newspapers for, I don't know, what's an average? 6 weeks? Less than 6 weeks? 4 weeks? Right?
We call it
so
6 weeks.
6 weeks on max, right? If it's one paper, you're doing this alone. If it's 3 papers or whatever. I am thinking this what we're doing here with this digital thing is that you could run 100 of these ads, right? Over 6 months. Just change them out and swap them out. So if you charge the client like a management fee and a booking fee and the artwork fee and all that, we will make money off of this. This sounds like something in conjunction, obviously, with at the time with the traditional and the outdoor and all these other things. And I think we went to management with the presentation, and they were like, "No, this makes no sense. We cannot make any money on a $5 boost ad," which basically that's what it was. I think it was $2 in those days.
Yeah.
We're not going to make any commission off of $2. I'm like, but you're not thinking about it in the sense of two US compounds over 6 months. But they said, no, your client is not going to give us a budget for 6 months. Stop being ridiculous here. You're being retarded. I'm like, but
that's not important right now.
That's not important. I'm like, very good, well done. But I'm like, yeah, but look at Google. When you study how Google does it, Google is telling you, run this campaign for as long as possible so the system can learn, and then the cost goes down. Once the cost goes down, you don't tell the client that. You continue to keep the budget the same, but you make the money back. But they're not thinking that long term because they were stuck in this old way that we run the campaign for 6 months, for 6 weeks, then you move on to something else, and you move on to something else. Something very, it's very difficult for them to see, the whole picture.
Yeah,
but that was just one of the
them
things.
Out of that.
Right, but that was just one of the things. The second thing.
They're not seeing, it's not about the whole picture.
Yeah.
And I keep saying it. We can talk about it until we blue in the face, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to, and when I say the agencies, not going to understand or see or be able to digest and all these things if trying to hold on to a model that was designed to sell media space.
Right. So that brings me back to Dwayne's situation. And Dwayne and I have talked about this many times, which is the bugbear that both Dwayne and I have. And Dwayne said it before you came, was that when they do their budgets for media spend and for advertising, the clients say, well, we've already paid the agency to come up with this beautiful press ad. We don't have no more money to go and run Google ad or Facebook ad. Or all right, if you want to do it, here's a little bit of money to run it, but we have no more money to do artwork.
Yeah.
And this is where we find the disconnect. So the agency is not, and Dwayne and I always complain about this and argue about this. The agency is not, when they build the press ad, not building digital assets as well. They're just coming up with a press ad or quote unquote TV or radio or whatever. And I said, okay, well, here we run the ad in the papers. What digital? Okay, here's how much it's going to cost to resize this ad.
Resize this, yep. with the same amount of info.
Exactly, and that's Dwayne's problem right there. And Dwayne has always been crying. It's like, how are you fixing all this information into this? Because they can't even animate it. Because if they try to animate it, the cost goes up.
Yeah.
So
one of the other challenges too that compounds in the whole issue is that digital is also highly accountable. So they get to see exactly how many people saw the ad, where they're from, what page they were on, etc. They get to see how many people clicked on the ad, what the engagement is like. And you don't have those metrics with a billboard or a press ad or, Jared,
not
even a radio ad.
When you show when you show that data back to the creative director, I remember going to the creative director at the time and telling him, this, I think it was Satyajit Self. I said, this visual is not working. They're not clicking this ad. They don't like this ad. And he got vexed. He said, it's creative. It's creative. I said, that doesn't matter. If they're not clicking it, means that they're not interested in it.
When
you could be as creative as you want.
Yeah, when you are the one in the campaign, so they do a booking on press, radio, and digital. And digital is the only one that's that granular being in its accountability. It's the only one that they come back to and say, but look, this is not working here, right? And you say, but how do you know that it's not working over there too? But because you're showing, you are able to show those granular numbers. You're held accountable. The rest of everybody else that can't show the numbers, well, no, the ad ran. And that is all they were looking at in terms of patching it back to any kind of ROI.
I come back to that. thing that we did. It was a huge, long 6-week slugfest of trying to come up with visuals for this banking client. We're going to have to edit out that name, this banking client. It was about six or eight of us in a conference room with the bank people from abroad. And they were using strange terms like evergreen. This is the evergreen campaign or whatever the nonsense we're talking. But the head of digital for the marketing thing, he kept saying, he said, these 3 visuals are what we see people clicking. And the creative director was in the meeting and he kept saying, no, that's just a woman holding a key for a car. Why don't we show something a little more dynamic? Like she's jumping out of the car or something. And he said, well, fine, give me that visual and let's test it. And then he said, well, now we have to go and do photography and all that. He said, but this visual works right now. Why would I need to go and do a whole new visual of a woman jumping out of a car when I know that this visual works? So why are we arguing? You see, that's when it hit me that we are no longer in the same space as let's sit down and brainstorm a creative idea and advertising for a digital campaign. Now, that's not true. We can come up with creative ideas, but we have to test them. And I don't think the agencies understand this, that you have to test it first. You have to run it for a little couple of weeks and see if the visual versus another visual works. Yeah, and Dwayne and I have always talked about this. We always talk about this, and they don't do that here. We don't do anything like that here. So we just, and the other bugbear is the same visual you use for the press, you're running on Dwayne's TriniTuner website, front page, whatever it is. And you think, well, it's successful, as Dwayne says, it's successful, you're getting clicks, but sales not going up, no sales going up. Dwayne, when is it we were talking about, there was a product that you had on the side, we're not going to say what it is, but you were in a meeting and you said, I think we remember early on, it was a discussion we had where the talk was that, what was it again? That, we're getting plenty clicks, but that's all that matters because, it's not about something about the sales. Something about the sales.
Right. It goes straight back to the obsession that we have these days with likes and, you make a post and it got a lot of likes, but nobody checks to see if it actually resulted in sales. Right.
Correct.
And what happens is that they take the same thing that they figure works in press or radio or TV and try to just copy the same thing over into the display web ads. And it doesn't work there because the ad was really created for print, or the ad was really created for TV or something like that. And so it doesn't transfer in the same way. What you were talking about earlier with regards to how do we make money from this? The agencies can still do that through bookings and production, but you have the technology there to make those things work for you. No, you can't make from these large bookings that you're accustomed to with the high price and print. But I mean, even for the newspaper, they're saying we losing out because they don't want to spend the kind of money that it would take to do multiple press ads over that 6-week campaign. But at the same time, content is king, and you have to find interesting ways to bring both the audience and the advertisers together in your space, in your niche. And I mean, I think locally we really don't appreciate verticals, how niches work and how interested audiences are there. It's a little pet peeve of mine that things like Google Ads, where you go to Google, you drop the ads there, it puts it on a ton of websites all over the place. Many of them are verticals. Many of them are niche sites. your ad might end up on recipes.com or wherever people visit. And, that works in getting it in front of the right people. However, there is no relationship anymore between you, the creatives, and the publisher. The publisher can't, half the time the publisher don't even know what ads are being run until after they run. They could go back into their AdSense account and see, what ads did we run, what ads did we get revenue from. But when you have a publication and you're doing direct ads like we do on TriniTuner, we don't do Google ads. We actually build a relationship with the customer, with the advertiser, with their agency, with their creative team, and say, look, let's try this. Let's see how this works. No, my experience is that this will work better for you. We could, have a car drive across the page, or have somebody walk out, or like we're doing for Top Gun right now, for Paramount Pictures, we have a site takeover that's really in your face. So, we work with them to do that. I would go on the portal, Paramount Pictures portal, it's called ARC, and you get the creatives from there, and you know what will work with your audience. When you have things like Google Ads, it can't just create a new thing in your publication for you. Those press ads that show up in the middle of the text with the word wrap kind of thing. Those, I think, what you call them?
I'm not sure what they call them, but it's a new format that they started about 5 or 6 years ago.
Right. And
it splits across the middle column. Yeah.
Right.
And it kind of goes into the copy.
They have high impact. If it was let's say if you were to transfer that to the newspaper's website, there is no opportunity there to do that because there is no relationship between the advertiser, the client, the agency, and the publisher. That would allow for things like that. So those are things that.
Well, I'll tell you a story. I'll tell you a story about that ad format. I think it was 2002 or 2003. We came up with the idea of, so Saatchi and Saatchi in London had taken over the Evening Standard. I think it was the Evening Standard, where all the copy of the newspaper was scrambled, and it was a campaign that they did for ALS. I think it was ALS, where you can't control, you can't control your stuff. So all the letters and numbers. It was for something. Some disorder where I don't know, Jared. I don't know if you remember this. It's Lou Gehrig's disease, and it won one set of awards, Addies, it won everything, right? Because they basically took editorial copy and destroyed it, and then ran a whole other paper after that to say, well, we talked why people got it because blah 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 blah. So we came up with this idea: why don't we create an ad that gets into the copy of the paper, so that and we went to the papers and said, listen, let's run an ad where you put in your editorial copy and no. So what do you mean? What do you mean no? You didn't finish no editorial and advertising don't work together. I say, okay, but what we're trying to say is that just for this page, no. And we just kept getting no, weeks and weeks and weeks until we gave up. And then one day we get this notice saying, welcome to the new form of advertising in the newspaper. I think it was in Newsday who started it.
It was Newsday.
Yeah.
But I think Newsday pitched it and Express ran it first.
Right. So somehow it became more important for them at that time. Maybe we were just too ahead of the curve for them. Yeah. But they realized that they had to be competitive and they had to try something else.
From what I heard, I think it was Gail at Newsday.
Yeah.
Gail Balwant, and she had pitched it. And I think the client ended up doing it with Express instead, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, not unfortunately, but for her, I guess.
But that's now the standard in all the papers. All the papers doing it now.
Yeah,
and that's the last piece of innovation that I've ever seen the media do, well, the newspaper do, when it comes to advertising. But yeah, go on.
The general theme that we keep bouncing up on here, and I mean, Quincy said it too, it is trying to adapt to that new technology, that new thing, and getting resistance from it. I think it's, the only constant is change, and they just have to figure out how to continue using that. With the newspaper first saying, no, they're not going to do that, to eventually doing it. It's a reoccurring theme that we are going to keep seeing. But I think what is important is pulling out the good aspects of all of these things and trying to encourage those. What I don't like seeing with regards to technology, and you've seen it all over, is that one, you have these monoliths like Facebook and Google that kind of overshadow everything else. And it doesn't leave much space for anyone else. One of the things I think we spoke about the other day, Ian, was the fact that it's always just the biggest thing. There's Google. Yes, there's Bing and Yahoo, but no one talks about going to advertise on Bing or Yahoo. No one talks about, why don't you Bing that? And same thing with Facebook and Meta and Google. All of these things are the biggest and best at what they do. And we've developed this culture where we leave no space for the second, third. It's a Ricky Bobby kind of thing. If you're not first, you're last, right?
Yeah.
And it's that to me is a little concerning, because we do get ad bookings. We have quite a lot of great advertisers that we've worked with. Some of them, like RBC, for example, an NP has been with us for the whole 20 years. We have great advertisers. But when it comes to, I'm seeing other sites like Mark Lindsay has Tech News, TT. There was like Outlish, and there are a lot of great publications. There is Wired 868, etc. TT Weather Center. They're great websites that we have content on that you don't see advertisers even considering. I mean, we have a hard time already trying to be considered for campaigns. We have to keep reminding people that, we're there. Agencies that were there. But there is no space for second place. And that, I think, is a culture that we really need to kind of not embrace so much. But it's happening all over. I mean, Netflix was once the king of the roost, and now you have others popping up.
Now they're catching the tail.
Was one. There's just space for the biggest one.
That's business, and that's how it's been. I mean, the agencies just a crow that we're the biggest agency, and I always say that the empires always fall. Meta, I don't think Meta is going to go the place where they want it to go. I don't think a lot of people are going to, just for example, I don't know about Google. I'm not too sure. But I mean,
Zoom has proven to me that I can't predict what is going to happen.
I mean, just look at Elon Musk. Elon Musk has us hard on for Twitter. Why? Why? What's your end game? I don't understand. But then again, I never really liked Twitter. But Jared is a Twitter person, so. Quincy, you're not on Twitter. I realize. I can't find you on Twitter.
I'm on Twitter, but I really inactive on Twitter because honestly, Twitter like that double shutter internet that I can't always deal with.
Yeah. It's too much.
It's a little too much for me. So I'm very sparingly. I just get on my Twitter, alert something, and if something really turn me on, I click and jump in and
make a guess on Twitter in a while. I mean, LinkedIn, there are a lot of people on LinkedIn, but it doesn't seem that much people are using LinkedIn, and they're definitely not using it the way LinkedIn would like them to. and it's a real tough luck for LinkedIn. It's a great platform. It's a serious Facebook, for professionals, and a lot of people add other people. I get a lot of requests, and then you don't hear from the person at all.
Yeah. But in the beginning, LinkedIn was interesting. In the beginning, LinkedIn did not allow you to connect to anybody, first of all, outside of your country.
Yeah.
Second of all, anybody you didn't have an email address for.
Yeah.
And I think there was one other criteria that the person had to know you personally.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then suddenly when they I think they were bought over by somebody, they just became the business Facebook. But my problem with LinkedIn is that LinkedIn
the decline button was, I don't know this person.
Yeah. But the thing is, LinkedIn, you can put anything on your, like we were talking, Quincy and I were talking last week, well, this week, it came out this Monday, about our friend from St. Lucia. I mean, he could put anything on his LinkedIn. He could say he was president of this company. Who's to know? Are you going to run down every single connection and find out if he was president of this company? I think a lot of people just assume, well, whatever you put on LinkedIn is correct. True. You see? Now, it's the same thing with faking your resume. It's the same thing. If you write shit on your resume and carry it, we had an instance of that in the agency, actually. They fired a girl. They fired a girl because they found out she had lied on her resume, but she was a good worker. She was doing really good work, and she was very pleasant. She was very nice. But hey, she lied on her resume, so you're out. You're out, you're gone. But at the same time, you're lying. They're like, somebody was telling me how they went and hired somebody from LinkedIn, and they realized that the person didn't have a clue what they were doing. And they were like, what? How do you have? Oh, right. It was when we were talking about Mad Bird. I don't know, Quincy, did you hear about Mad Bird? About a fake agency that were hiring people to do pictures, and it was just one guy in an apartment in London. I don't know if you heard that story.
Vaguely familiar, but no, right. I would say.
But that's what he did. He went on LinkedIn. He created a profile, and he said he was some kind of executive from Nike and all this kind of thing. Nike said he was an intern for 2 weeks. And he write 2 years at Nike. I mean, that's the kind of thing. So yeah, not to digress and go off tangent, but yeah, I mean, there are a lot of channels, what we call channels. There are a lot of channels, and you really just can't keep up with all of them. Right now, Dwayne and I are fighting over this TikTok story, and I just tired. No,
it takes a lot. But I mean, you see people like Justin Bussole really make something out of it. Bannister has some good stuff too. You see them use TikTok to put out really good content and build a following. In our case, on TriniTuner, we get our big traffic on the site. So I use social media because you really don't, you have to be there. You can't not be on social media. So, from time to time, we would use it to post stuff. But someone asked yesterday is Wednesday. Yeah, someone asked yesterday if we could post an ad for them on our Facebook page. So they weren't terribly familiar with the site. So I showed them the analytics that we have on the site versus what we have on our Facebook page. And, it was 143,000 individuals in 30 days on our website versus 34,000 followers on Facebook, but really Facebook was only showing our posts to all of 300 people. Yeah. So even having that number of followers on Facebook is, a pointless metric. But again, what I think makes the big difference is working hand in hand, and it brings back that human factor too, working hand in hand with the the client and the agency and everyone involved in the campaign to ensure that you as a publisher, you as the agency, you as a client, all the parts work together to the best of their ability. That is something that pure digital may take years of AI still yet to do.
Yeah.
And I think leveraging that is really important. I mean, the ads that we run on the site, again, we stopped Google Ads a long time ago for many reasons. One of the main ones is just that there was no personal interaction, there was no relationship between the brands we were promoting to our users and us. And I mean, we spend a lot of time that our forums are probably the most active in Trinidad, maybe in the Caribbean. And I make sure and jump in on the forums every day. You want to interact with the users, let them know you. They would send messages, they would call. They even had limes. I mean, tuna doubles lime was a thing. Every Tuesday, guys meet up. I know couples who now have kids who met on the forums. And
that's what I said. I said you all were the first social network. You were the first. I mean, people try to build Caribbean social network. Yes, and you could see, remember a couple of them tried to build it. What was it? First tried to build a social
a few of them, tried.
Yeah, but Dwayne has been doing it since before, you see.
I think that relationship building is very, very important. And it's a step that Google and Facebook and they kind of miss out on a little bit. Another thing too that I was getting at earlier was when you have these niches, these verticals, and things like WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, they do it very well. However, they're not searchable by Google. They require authentication. And I mean, just like but it's not important right now, WhatsApp group, when I was added, I can't see all of the prior conversations. So let's say there's an interest group about making ice cream. If I now join that group, I have no access to all of the great content and discussion that took place before that. If I'm not in a particular making ice cream Facebook group, if I don't even know that group exists. If I do a Google search, Google has no access to the posts in that group. Even posts to replies on public pages. Google doesn't have access to. But a forum is, you can be anonymous if you want, and all of the posts are open, just like Reddit. You do a Google search, it pops up. I mean, Ian and I have spoken before. We get phone calls about a console stove, because if you Google console stoves Trinidad, there's a topic from 2017 that someone started. Just an hour ago, I got a phone call on our 682 number with a lady asking, how much we charge to deliver water. Because she did a Google search and she saw a topic that Google gave her in the search result for truck-borne water. She clicked it, and because she's not familiar with forums, she just went up to contact us and called the number. I told her, no, scroll down the page, you'll see it's a discussion taking place on the page. And someone there had mentioned, who they had used for truck-borne water because I asked her where she's from, Sandy Grande, and, try that out. But because there aren't much sites like ours, people would come across it and not understand what it is they're seeing. They figure, well, hey, if Google tell me this page is about truck-borne water, then these people deliver water. We get calls for borax and all kinds of things, because the forums are so full of information. Plus, too, a lot of that information doesn't change. So we may have a topic someone posted in 2005 about a diesel pickup, and that information doesn't change. So it's still relevant today. We see it kind of happening all the time. Now that everybody's talking about Starbucks, the new branch at Piarco, they kind of rekindled the topic we had from 2019 about Starbucks opening in Vancouver and the ninth branch. It's 7 pages long now, but it started in 2019, and there was a post just a little while ago. So, forums add that dynamic. That's all part of that community and building relationships with people. A lot of brands have been able to jump in on the forums. I remember Liquid Molly had jumped in, helped out a guy, told him come down to the warehouse. They gave him some product, he put it in, and he basically became a brand ambassador for them on the forums. Anytime anybody talking about anything that was related to the issue he had, he would wholeheartedly say, no, you have to try Liquid Molly. It absolutely works. And, those are things that you get out of the forum. I think we've been compared to Reddit, the local Reddit, but the dynamic that happens there is very different from other forms of social media. And because of that, now we can leverage that with the ads that we run. The brands that we work with, our users feel comfortable knowing that, hey, well, this the community that I'm part of on TriniTuner, that platform supports this brand, or this brand supports them, vice versa.
But TriniTuner has grown, sorry to cut you across, but TriniTuner has grown out of just being about cars. Because the Old Talk forum and the other forums that have been built inside of TriniTuner is more... is and classifieds. You have a funny story about classifieds. I don't want to get into that now. Yeah. But the thing is that your thing has grown has evolved out of just talking about cars. That's still the base, and that's your DNA, and that's not going to change. But you're not gonna start calling yourself, oldtalk.com. That's not, you're not gonna do that. But you do have an Old Talk forum. You do have those kind of forums where people could talk all kind of stuff on politics and all kind of things, And the thing about TriniTuner is TriniTuner don't have that bot that Facebook have now. Where it just have Dwayne going, no, you can't do that. Delete it. Exactly. It just have Dwayne.
I am probably the most lenient of all the moderators that we have.
How many mods do you have? We
have 50 people that are assigned as moderators, but we have hundreds of users who would gladly report a post, send a PM saying, hey, check this out, hey, this need to merge, things like that. So it's
the community is self-regulating in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Sometimes a little too much. There's a user that got banned a few days ago, and there's a thread asking for us to free him. So it's an organic thing. Inside of there, you have a lot of users complaining, no, he was, XYZ, and others saying, no, he was a source of entertainment, and all sorts of things. But I tend to be very lenient because I believe that, I guess just like Elon Musk and Twitter, that things should be a little freer and more open, and people should be allowed to voice their opinion within, limits, of course.
That is actually a very interesting segue. And I think we talked quite a lot. Quincy, is there anything you want to kind of jump in and add? I think kind of reaching the end.
Yeah.
Anything you want to?
I've actually really just enjoyed the conversation and hearing the perspective from Dwayne's side. Pretty cool, pretty insightful. What keeps jumping out at me is that need for a more native experience, like native advertising, having stuff that really more granular and focus on the actual experience that they want your users to enjoy, and linking clients within that space, within that context. I all about relevance. The whole wide net, and let us catch as many things as we talk about the last time, and drawing that. You see that? I think that is not in the thinking of the future. It's about more granular experiences, more focused experiences, and more personalized experiences, of course. And it could, when you think about it that way, it could only benefit because like each platform has a culture, has like a personality, a feel to it. And we had to start creating stuff specifically for it and move away from that. Let's resize it and throw it on whatever platform. We need to be thinking media neutral. I keep poking that, and that's one of the greatest things I ever learned.
You gotta remember, media neutral.
Yeah, we need to be media neutral when we create it, and when we thinking about what is the type of communication that we want to create for XYZ brand. And we need to do that with proper information too from clients. Your target can't be everybody. Your focus, your business purpose can't be to make more sales. You have to be more specific and more granular with that data. And then we have to be more specific and granular with what we churn out as communication based on that to achieve a very specific goal. If we think in that way.
That is the expertise that people come to Dwayne for example. That's the expertise that you hire an agency for, which is what I keep saying. If the agency is not doing that, or if you, Dwayne, whoever is not doing that, then what, you can't make the money. You see, the agency cannot say, well, we think the report said they get 10,000 clicks. That's good. Like, no, that's not what we're here for. Just as I said, we have to build a profile of a consumer, of the customer, of the whoever it is. The liquid moly guy. That is our consumer. That is our guy. I mean, Dwayne and I had that conversation when we were doing a pitch a couple months ago, where we were looking at who is this customer for this particular product. Who is this person, so that we could go to the client and say, look, we could talk directly to that person. Still, we have a lot of politics involved and all that. Anyway, I think this has been great. Yeah, this has been great. I wish you could go on forever.
Yeah, I just want to add in though that while a lot of us may have experience and knowledge with how to do many things, even in the digital space. None of us know everything or
correct
100% sure about what it is we doing. I mean, hell, Instagram not even so sure what they're doing. They admitted it the other day, saying, look, we're just going to try this full screen.
They're on the back foot. They're on the back foot now.
But I mean, besides that, the thing is, Meta changes stuff all the time. Google changes stuff all the time. We're all kind of learning and figuring this thing out. And I think it's very important that not just us, but across the board, the client, the agency, the publisher, the end user, all keep an open mind about how this thing works now and how it's going to evolve and how we can make best use of the tools that we have right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. Jared, has your sound audio come back?
Yeah,
Are
I
you
think
with us? It's kind of breaking up, but that's all right. What we want to define before we go.
But that's not important, right?
That's not what we're defining. What we're defining, Jared, what's the definition for tonight?
What is media neutral? What is the term?
What's media neutral? What's media neutral, Quincy?
To explain it, media neutral is the process of or the position of creating content or communication that is not specific to any particular media platform, but adaptable to all.
But that's not important right now.
But that's not important right now.
Well, it is important. It will be important. It should be important. Thank you very much. We hope you guys
Thanks for
enjoyed
having
this
me.
one.
Quincy, we need to link up.
Yeah, we actually have to, like literally, we have to have something that are supposed to be here on for the longest while.
Right,
Okay.
good. Well organized.
Yeah, man.
I look forward to it.
Yes,
good.
man, me too.
Okay, thanks, guys. Everybody who's been listening, thank you for listening. Thank you for keeping up with us. And we will be back next week again with what we
Gerard,
promised.
can we get some digital-oriented quotes tomorrow morning?
What?
Yeah, I just like listening to the quotes that you have every morning.
Oh, okay. You have a fan. You have a fan. Yeah,
he has this whole
the inspirational,
of inspirational quotes.
Yeah. They're good.
It kind of gets my day going.
That's good.
Yeah, right.
Well done.
Excellent.
All right.
I
okay,
mean,
guys.
A lot of them are a little cheesy, but I could do that.
Dwayne, if anybody who is listening wants, send them to the website, of course, TriniTuner.com, and download the app. Right? The mobile app is called what? TriniTuner? Just called TriniTuner.
Yeah.
Right. It's on iOS and Android, right?
iOS and Android.
Right. And they can follow you. No longer BlackBerry. Wow, you want BlackBerry too? That's awesome.
It was, yeah.
You are on Twitter, you're on Instagram, TriniTuner is on
TriniTuner, Twitter, TriniTuner, Instagram, TriniTuner, Facebook, TriniTuner, TikTok, TriniTuner, and everywhere.
Right. Good. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Have a good week, and we'll see you all later.
Okay, thanks for having me.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.